What's up, everyone? Joey here. So I've been trying to enjoy The Last of Us Part 1 on PC, and as you may know, it is full of bugs and optimization issues. I believe most of it is due to memory optimization and texture streaming from the consoles, which have 16 gigabytes of unified VRAM. So the CPU and GPU, which is kind of integrated on consoles, can talk to or can pull from a full 16 gigabyte of VRAM that runs at a very high bandwidth. So minimal latency and 16 gig all in one place. While on PC, we might have 32 gig of system RAM and even 8 gig or so, or standard is 8, but 8 or 12 of VRAM, but they're not interconnected. So basically, the system RAM is much slower than VRAM, and if the GPU needs particular textures, it has to go from the RAM streamed, and the CPU is the one doing all the processing, the RAM through the CPU to the VRAM, and it's inefficient. So that's where you end up with settings that are supposed to be just VRAM heavy. They're actually inadvertently CPU heavy. And turning down the texture settings, normally, like classically, in a game that's not maxing out your VRAM or not using tons of texture streaming, classically, turning texture settings up or down is just, if you have enough VRAM, that's fine, it'll work. But from a console game that's been ported to PC, even though all the other fancy bells and whistles are working great, like FSR works great, all the texture settings and quality settings are really nice to have, when you turn stuff to Ultra, you can easily push towards like way past 12 gig VRAM. You can use like 16 gig of VRAM easily because that's what the game wants. So, in getting all that out of the way, I've been trying to play this, and one major, like I'm on version 1.0.1.7, which is the latest, and there's supposed to be a 1.0.2 patch coming out, 3.5 or 3.7 gigs, which is actually due today, any day now. They might delay it, who knows, but we don't know if that's necessarily going to fix all the texture streaming issues when you want to turn your quality up. So I've been playing with FSR2, and these are my in-game settings, and because of the whole texture streaming and CPU side of things, how the CPU has to process all the textures, and the textures will easily push, but even if it shows that it's only using, say, 10 gig, it's actually swapping stuff in and out to avoid maxing out your GPU's VRAM and causing massive texture swap stutter, but you're getting a performance hit because of that. So anyway, if you're on a weaker system than mine, I'm on a 5600X and RX 6700 XT, you can turn down animation quality with minimal visual degradation to your gameplay, and that is a CPU major. So anything with CPU major you want to turn down, and you just have to be more conservative with anything that uses VRAM. Even if it says moderate, if you don't notice a big difference going from high to medium, and you can see the screenshot here, the changes to the trees and stuff, what I do notice is that on high, the license plate of the car is much more visible and clearer from a distance, and then when you turn down to medium, it just gets fully blurry. So you have to make a compromise. If you're on a very high-end system like RTX 4080 with GDDR6X, you've got more bandwidth to work with, you still need to make sure your system RAM is up to scratch, because the system RAM will be the bottleneck. So the VRAM could be like freaking massive bandwidth speed, but because the storage is not connected the way it is on consoles, like even the SSDs on PS5 has direct decompression through the CPU straight to the VRAM, straight to the unified VRAM. While on PC, it goes from your slow-ass, NVMe storage to the system RAM, then to the VRAM. Okay? So anyway, you just have to be aware of that. And so if you don't find any setting here, like draw distance has CPU major, you can turn that down and you probably won't really notice it. Like you can notice it in a screenshot when you turn it to ultra. Tiny things changing, like the fence really far away in the distance. But for the most part, it's only low where you start to notice details disappearing. But if you don't know the details are there, it may be worth it to turn things down to low, unless you're getting bad pop-in. But I'm going to keep it on high just for this demonstration, because I've got an awesome fix for you guys that I want to share, and it's a weird fix. So anyway, you can see the settings I'm running. Okay, and this is on the base without any fixes, the base 1.0.1.7 EXE. And you can see I've turned some stuff to medium. I don't want to, like, if there's no visual benefit, I don't want to just run high or ultra just for the sake of it. The only setting that I feel really adds to the immersion in the gameplay is character texture quality. Turning that up to ultra is awesome, because there are so many scenes where you'll see the side of the character, or just the characters in front of you, the 3D model, and the visual upgrade going from even high to ultra, which is normally a minimal difference, it's noticeable. And then you go straight into the cutscene, and you're not getting like a jarring, that goes from low to high quality. So I'll just show you my settings here. And you can see I've got most of it cranked, except screen space reflections, because it's not RTX, you know, and you still get nice puddles and stuff like that. You just don't stare into all the puddles that you see. You could probably turn real-time reflections up for the mirrors if you want, but there is a performance hit, and it can be inadvertent, like you've got water off to the side. You're not even looking at the water, but because this is enabled, especially near boats, like the boat scene that I'm about to come up, this can affect the input latency a little bit. So other than that, yeah, nothing major to note. You just see I've turned off the extra effects, lens flare, and all that. Now, I want to show you what's interesting. So basically, the two major complaints that people have with this game that are able to get it to run without crashing is input latency, which is directly tied to the FPS, and frame rate drops, which is some areas you'll just go to an area and you go from 60 FPS, 70 FPS down to 30 FPS, or even 25 FPS. And that's partially to do with your settings if they are cranked too high for your system, but there is actually game-breaking memory optimization issues that are still present in this current version of the game. But if your FPS is running at a decent level, like 60 plus, you'll actually have minimal input latency issues. Like you can see here, I can track her head, no problem. I can like go around here, and I mean, it will depend on player skill, but I can track these fine. Like I'm not getting input latency where like my mouse feels like it's laggy or anything. But that's because I'm up at 80 FPS. But the thing you'll notice is, look at my CPU usage. It's at 80% for this 80 FPS. And the problem there is when you suddenly have two more AI come out of the building, and you've just killed one, those two AI will hit your FPS a little bit, will hit your CPU. And if your CPU is maxed out because you've got the frame rate uncapped, what happens is that'll cause that input latency either hitching, or you'll get like, you'll see them react, like you'll hear the AI react, and then suddenly your mouse will like jitter a little bit. And the way you solve that is by giving your system spare resources to handle when the AI come out. And it's kind of common sense. 80 FPS is 20 more than, say, 60. So that 20 extra frames is processed, like basically, you can basically, what do you call it? You can pocket that 20 frames and keep it for when you need it, so that you don't get FPS drop in the 1% lows when the AI reacts. So I'll give you an example. Look at my CPU utilization, 80%. Now I'm going to cap the FPS to 60 using Riva Tuner. I'll put it on a hotkey. So now it's at 60, and our utilization just went from 80% down to 67%. So we just pocketed like around 10 to 15% spare headroom for when I shoot this guy. And I'll just shoot him. I know you can do stealth stuff, but... And these guys come out. And you can see how the FPS is very stable when they reacted, and they'll come charge me or something if I hide. Here we go. I may still miss because I haven't practiced the game enough, but you get the idea. Like, it doesn't feel laggy at all. It's just to do with player skill. But you can see how the game is responding. Like, if I'm moving the camera, I don't have a camera on my hand, but there is no input latency. This is just like normal, and this is a fine running scene. Like, this scene of the game does not have performance issues. Cool. And now I'll go into a scene with way more AI. Like, I'm better at shooting if it's like a shooting range, if they're like all camping corners. That's the kind of shooting I'm used to. And I'll show you the next scene. Like that key like dropped the wall. Now this is also where the performance issue is, and I'm going to show you a fix. I'm going to cut into the fix and explain it as I go. So you're just going to see like the game kind of flash, because it's going to go. I have to relaunch the game with the fix enabled, and I'll link the fix down in the comments. Basically, the fix is to enable debug mode, which is like developer debug mode. And for some reason, even though it's the same game version, it's 1.0.1.7 of the debug mode, it has better memory management. So what I believe is happening is the debug mode culls previous scene textures and things like that. Like, it's doing more aggressive culling, and that keeps the memory management streamlined. Like, it doesn't just tank the FPS when you walk into, like, I'll show you what I mean. So I'll go to this next scene, and normally when you go in here, and this isn't modified yet, this is fixed, you'll get FPS drop. As you can see, we just went down to 53, but there's a really bad spot, which is upstairs, up the blue stairs. There's just something broken about the way the game handles. So you can see that's input latency. I'm used to shooting like that kind of angle. That's how accurate the input latency is when you have decent FPS, like even 50 is fine. But watch what happens up here. So as soon as I get up here, the game just, I don't know, it's having some kind of memory leak. But look at that, 26 FPS. And this is what people mean, like now the input latency feels horrible. Just aiming has like a slight lag to it. And if I try to aim at this guy, like I can home in on him, but the mouse doesn't feel good. Like it feels crappy. Like see, I can still track him. And I can like, you know, I can camp him when he walks into my line of sight, crosshair. But yeah, you can just see how 26 FPS sucks. And here's to prove that this is just a bugged area, and there are multiple areas like this in the game. I've only played like a couple hours in because I didn't want to try finishing the game with so many performance issues. I was waiting for patches. And I kept trying to find a way to fix this. Main issue is when scenes like that, I thought it was a setting issue. So I thought maybe I just had something turned up too high. And if I turn everything down to lowest and reboot and rebuild my shaders, that'll fix it. And I actually tried that. I turned everything down to lowest, cleared my shader cache, and loaded back into the scene, and it was still crap. Like, it still tanked to 20, 25, 30 FPS. But see, as soon as I'm down the stairs, I'm back at 60. See? So if I hadn't gone up there, I wouldn't even know there's a problem. But then there's a spot where you can force the issue, and that's this next scene. So if I go out here, this is probably one of the most notorious scenes that everyone will run into, and this will be the deciding factor. If this scene does not run smooth for you, and you want to play through the whole game, you'll probably stop there. Like, I reckon a lot of you may have done just that. And you'll come out to this scene, and as soon as it gets near all the AI and buildings and stuff...
There's our boy.
You got, like, how many AI to deal with? And you're on 30 FPS.
Son of a bitch.
Using a mouse.
Let's go wrap this up.
So yeah, you can see how crappy that is, and there's no obvious fix that they've released. And it's just crazy. Like, this sucks so much. And I thought it was like, I thought it might have even been like the ocean, because the ocean looks really trippy when you have reflections turned on. Even now with reflections turned off, you can see there's like a weird shimmer, like it just pixelated when I move the mouse. But I believe that pixelation is also from being on 30 FPS, because something's tanking the performance. And I believe it is memory related, because the VRAM's up at 10.8, and I'm also using ReLive, but it happens without ReLive. And it could be the AI, like that's what a lot of people also, like I also suspect that it might be an AI thing. There might be like too many AI and the game has like poor AI optimization. Maybe their pathing or something is like messing up. But it's not that either. It is to do with something to do with texture or streaming, memory management, and culling. So basically what culling is, it's when the game flushes out unnecessary files from previous scenes as you go into a new scene. And I believe the culling is more aggressive in debug mode. So now we're going to switch to debug mode, and I'm going to go straight through these exact same scenes, and you're going to see the difference that it makes. Alrighty guys, so we're back, and this is running the debug mode of 1.7, hotfix 1.7, and you can see here there's all these like in-game overlays that are part of the debug mode, but you can disable those. And we can see FSR2 quality, but the main thing to note is look at the VRAM usage. So even here, I was at 10 gig before, I'm down at 9, running the exact same setting. So obviously the memory leak or the memory management is much better in debug mode, and it may be inadvertent. It may be that debug mode culls on purpose to test certain areas, but they've done something to like relax the game's culling in the standard, you know, public release, the retail version of the game, and the debug mode runs better. Like it's just weird. So anyway, you can see here the same settings, everything's high. I even turned the environment texture quality to high. Okay, so normally this will tank this if you don't have like enough VRAM. This will tank your FPS just turning that up by itself. And we've got character texture quality on ultra. I do have some of the shadow stuff turned down, but that's just because it makes minimal visual differences. Like it's unnecessary. As you can see here, like even point light shadows from low, it just sharpens up the shadows a little bit, but you wouldn't even, like, really, low could even look better in a way. But anyway, so that aside, you can see the build version in the bottom left. It is actually 0.7. It says 01.5, but the exe, the executable, is 0.7 modified. So anyway, Control tilde to bring up the menu. I'm going to close my FPS overlay. And I'll just show you quickly here, if you want to use this to play for yourself, because this is linked down in the comments, just go to display message con, and you can actually turn off the FPS overlay or re-enable it. And you can also have a more focused look at the texture usage specifically, and the process heap, which is what the CPU has to process for memory management. And you can even add in input latency, so we can see the input lag. Although MSI Afterburner that I use for my OSD already has the input latency here on this bar at the bottom, and the 16.7 ms is the frame latency. The input lag is nice to have here if you don't run MSI Afterburner OSD, because it is built into the debug mode game. So anyway, if you don't want it, you can turn it off. But the main point is it's really cool, and you can also see the game frame time history, the render frame time history. You can bring up these graphs so that you can really see if there's anything causing significant hitching or stutters or things like that. And I'm just going to leave those enabled, but just so you're aware that it can be turned on and off. So you can basically play this like the normal game without the performance hit. Okay? So I'm going to hide that. Oh, you can also change the type of display mode. I'll just show that real quick. Just hold left click, and I think it's A or D. Yeah, A and D. And you can see you can change it to percentages. You can kind of minimize it a little bit just to show whatever you feel is important. But we're going to keep it on millisecond. Okay. So control tilt. And now watch this. So we're going to go, this is that first bit. And oh, we do want Afterburner open just to show it. And we'll see what happens if I uncap the FPS. We're at 86. Wait. I haven't really looked closely, but the CPU utilization, because the memory management is better, the CPU utilization is no longer going up to 80% at 80 FPS like it was before. It's actually staying down at 65 FPS, even though we're at a high frame rate. So I believe it definitely is to do with the memory management, because the CPU is not having a problem pushing higher frame rate here. It's just the GPU that's gone up to 100 now. So if I cap it back, we're actually freeing up GPU headroom. But before, if you just click back in this video, the GPU was not doing enough work, like it was not maxing out properly, and now it is going all the way. So anyway, we're gonna cap it though, because capped is what I believe is the best way to play this game. You don't really need like Twitch shooter input latency levels. It's more to do with stabilizing the performance. So I'll come out here, and you can see how stable it is going out.
Consolidated the crates in the south warehouse. Supplies are locked
up.
Good. Let's do another one.
And that feels good. Like it's not lagging. There's no delay when I click stuff. When I click action buttons. These guys are gonna. Messed up.
There you go.
People roll it. I don't know. But the important scene is where we go out to the next part. But I'll go upstairs just so we can test that. I could have got him. Oh.
Cover me. I'm moving up.
Oh, he's upstairs. Anyway, I'm gonna go in the other room because that's where it lagged before. Like, okay, so check this out. It's not dropping FPS anymore. See that? How good is it? My input latency's gone, and I'll uncap it. See how much we can get up here. We can just at normal levels of frame rate. It's not. I thought it was like a texture or some kind of bug with the windows. You know, like I was guessing all these different things, and it is just the memory management. And as you can see here, the VRAM is still down at 9.1 gig. So it's culling. It's culling quick enough that anything being streamed in has headroom. It's not like swapping stuff out as it's bringing stuff in. I believe that's the main problem before, because when you're sitting at 10 gig, depending on the size of the textures, it has to swap stuff. Okay, now the real test. We'll go. This is playable. I can finish this game now, provided there's not some game-breaking bug further in. But see, the VRAM usage is climbing in this area, but I believe the debug mode will fix it. Like, as soon as we go out there, it'll drop the VRAM usage. But that's showing red in the debug.
There's our boy.
Yeah, this is the bit that normally you'd be tanking FPS in this scene. And look at it, it's up at 80. 70 to 80. It's not going under 60.
Let's go wrap this up.
And our GPU utilization is up at 100%. So I don't know. The debug mode has some
Let's be
magic on
smart
it,
about this. There's a lot of them.
and yeah, like I can aim.
Lost our contacts in the north. Lost our contacts.
Bitch! Right there! Hey, pull around!
Hit him, but the AI still moves in a way that's like hard to.
Watch my back!
Yeah, you can see the frame rate, how stable it is. We're holding 1% 60. And before, like this theme is just like 30 FPS. Wait, we'll see if the water looks better. Maybe the water is also like better optimized in Let me get this guy. I want to look at the water. So yeah, I hope that helps you out, guys. Just use the link in the comments, and okay, the water still looks trippy. Actually, maybe we'll be fine because we've got the CPU like headroom now.
Well done.
Maybe we'll be fine to turn on some of the reflection. Because I just kept them off because I just felt it's not worth adding extra load if the performance isn't decent. So now we've got the FPS definitely. Oh no. Reflections there. The water's just not very good in this scene. Like in this particular scene of the game, it just never looked good to me. So there's not much benefit having it up, but it does help with mirrors. What about this shadowing? Or maybe wait, because it's not hurting performance that much, you know. I'll turn these up to 100, and then I'll turn the real-time reflections to ultra, which should probably have a hit down into the under 60. I swear they do look better, but like cyberpunk grain, that. Fine. Keep those settings turned up. I want to test some of the early scenes again now with that turned up. But anyway, you can see that I've turned it up and it's not tanking performance, and we're getting some nice reflections now. Actually, were they already there? They seem more noticeable. The puddles. Like you do still get cube map puddles, even with reflections turned off. Green face reflections off. You still get cube maps, but.
I'll leave it to Robert to piss everyone off.
She gives me a medkit. But it is pretty cray. We've got stuff cramped now. It's not dropping
That
the
office.
FPS at all.
Robert must have run in there. Let's go.
Oh shit! Back in the fuck!
See, when it goes in on his
Just want to
face,
talk, Robert.
We get fucking nothing.
oh, we still got the
to
wet
talk
texture
about.
bug, the wet character
Put your
bug.
gun down.
So that's nothing to do with the memory management. It's just an actual bug where characters randomly get wet, cutscenes and stuff. But
Robert!
Joel, this way.
the
Come on,
FPS
you
is
ran in
nice.
here.
So yeah, thanks again for watching, guys. And just if you skipped to the end of this video, you didn't really watch the whole thing, and you just wanted to see how the fix works. So it's debug mode, which is an executable, a modified executable that enables the debug mode in the game. And you press Control Tilde to bring it up, and you can use either backspace and enter to go back and forward through the menus. And you just want to go to Message Con, or you can use your mouse and left click stuff, and disable FPS if you just want to play it like the normal game. And it'll still have all your saves and all that stuff. So I can disable that, and I can play this like the standard version, but with the better memory management. So it fixes memory management and boosts the performance, basically.
Almost got him.
So you get like 80 FPS in scenes that were previously tanking FPS.
Joel.
The hell are we smuggling?
I'll show you.
Yeah, awesome. So yeah, that's the end of the video. Please like and subscribe if this helps you out, because it helps the channel out, and it encourages me to do more videos like this when I find fixes and just interesting things. Okay, cheers guys, have a good one. Bye.